soul. Your mortal life has ended. Eternal punishment awaits you in the beyond. Yet I sensed a particular strength in you. Come, damned soul, answer my call. Join the rebellion, and together we shall break the chains of your fate.
After exploring the afterlife in a slightly relaxing fashion with the management sim game Spiritfarer, developer Thunder Lotus Games is returning to the action genre with 33 Immortals, a co-op roguelike game that promises a pick-up and raid experience. The focus on the afterlife is still present here because you play a character who has just died and must join a rebellion against the forces of hell. For those who want to go deeper into the story, this is a game based on the Divine Comedy. Similar to the famous poem, the game is structured into 3 parts: Inferno, Purgatory and Paradise. This video is based on an early access build and the third part is still in development, and I didn't have the courage to try the second part because the first part itself is quite long and challenging to conquer. For those who don't want to watch the entire video, here's a summary. The game has a really interesting premise, and the promise of getting to a raid boss fight within 30 minutes instead of having to sit through several hours of grinding is exciting. However, you soon realize that you only reach the boss fight within 30 minutes, and to actually defeat the boss, you still have to do quite a bit of grinding. Also, I never really managed to fight the boss with 32 other players as intended because the game has a steep learning curve and an unforgiving respawn system, which meant that I was fighting a losing battle with less than 20 players. After spending 2 hours with the game, I do have somewhat of an interest to go back and get powerful enough to actually beat the boss, but the game's structure being designed around working with other players means that my chances of success are kind of random and depends on the skill levels of the other players in my session. For Game Pass subscribers, this is definitely worth checking out for a couple of sessions at least. If you're thinking of buying the game though, it may be worth waiting a bit until the early access version gets a few more updates. That was the summary. Now let's look into a few more details. First, let me describe the basic structure of the game. You are dropped into a hub where you can interact with various NPCs, sort out your loadout and upgrades, and when you're ready, you can move to a portal where you can start your next run. The 3 sections of the game are actually 3 different difficulty levels. The default one, which you always have access to, is Inferno, and it features a 33-player playlist. The second one, which requires a key to unlock, has more difficult enemies and a cap of 22 players. The final one, which is currently not available, also requires a key to unlock and can fit a maximum of 11 players, and looks like it will feature the game's most difficult enemies. However, like I said earlier, the game is so challenging, at least in the early hours, that most people will die quite fast, and by the time you get to the boss, the 33-player count goes down to below 20. This is due to how death is handled in the game. When you die for the first time, you are turned into a soul, and another player must revive you before a timer runs out. If you are revived, you are given a small penalty on your health bar, which you must remove at a shrine in exchange for some currency. If you die again and are revived again, this penalty is increased. However, if you die and are unlucky to not be around other players, or the other players simply ignore you until the timer runs out, you face a game over. There are no second chances whatsoever. I'm not sure if we get a perk or artifact later in the game that enables us to revive ourselves, but at least at the start of the game, you die right away if no one revives you. And given that the game is played out across a huge map, it is possible sometimes that you may not be around other players when you die. Now let's talk about the other aspects of the gameplay. Before reaching the boss fight, there are two phases to complete. The first phase is the completion of 12 mini dungeons called as torture chambers. Each chamber has a player cap of 6 people, and it seems that only 6 chambers are active on the map at a given time. So assuming the lobby is full, only 30 players can go into these chambers at the same time, with the other 3 players roaming across the map trying to find other things to do. These mini dungeons have a simple objective. You just need to clear out all the enemies inside them, but if you're not careful, the small spaces will trap you and you can die very quickly. Once 12 of these chambers are cleared, the game proceeds to something called Ascension Battles. The original intention for this phase is for the 33 players to split into 3 groups of 11 and fight 3 separate Ascension battles across the map. But since there is no player limit per battle, all I have seen so far is a majority of players going to one battle and then 1 or 2 unlucky players trying to clear another battle on their own. These battles feature large enemies who are difficult to defeat on your own. So those few players fighting their own battles are doomed to die from the start. That's an immediate loss of another few players before you reach the boss fight. The worst part is, the game doesn't take you to the boss fight until all players have finished their battle, so you have to wait and watch the unlucky players pass the time until they are dead. Finally, there's the boss fight. I got the same boss twice, Lucifer, but I think there is at least one more set of bosses in the early access build, Adam and Eve, which I saw in some other videos. Anyway, this is what the game is all about, the boss fights. And for the most part, it does not disappoint. But I wasn't able to get the true experience because, like I said, I never had more than 20 people fighting alongside me, which placed us at an immediate disadvantage. The boss has 10 phases, with each phase giving a certain reward so that you don't walk away empty-handed when you fail. There are certain game mechanics you need to keep an eye on, such as hitting the boss's bracelets before he casts a spell, or clearing all minor enemies before the boss casts a spell, and so on. In a very helpful move, the game actually explains these mechanics inside the inbuilt compendium so that you don't have to refer to a third-party source to know what's going on. When you inevitably fail to defeat the boss, you are returned to the hub area where you cash in any bounties or feats as they are called in the game to progress your levels. The more you level up, the more perks you get, which make you stronger. I am yet to reach feat level 6, which is when weapon upgrades get unlocked, and this was after 2 hours of gameplay. So yes, there is some grinding required. And personally, I don't mind it too much, but I'm quite worried about how many players will actually stick around until they level up enough to defeat the boss. And in a game that relies so heavily on teaming up with other people, the player count will determine the fate of this game in the coming days. That's the risk associated with making your game multiplayer focused. If it works out well, the game will survive for several years. If not, it is doomed to die an early death. Given the quality of the game I've played so far, I do hope 33 Immortals survives and is given the opportunity to live up to its potential with a full launch soon. If you're interested to have a look, the game is available on the Epic Games Store and Windows Store on PC and on the Xbox consoles. Thanks for watching.